Hello, everybody, and welcome to this session in our third annual Fathers for Pixels live stream series. My name is Anusha Kandasivam. I'm your moderator for this session. Through Fathers for Pixels YouTube panel sessions, the Pixel Project is providing a platform and learning resource for fathers across the world to step up and speak out about the importance of combating violence against women. This June's Fathers for Pixels campaign features dads from India and the USA. Each live stream YouTube session will feature 2 or 3 panelists discussing a topic that links fatherhood and how dads can help stop violence against women in their families, in their communities, and cultures. Each session will also include a live moderated Q&A session for dads and communities to ask questions. Today, we are proud to collaborate with our longtime partner, Breakthrough India, to present the second annual Fathers Raising Feminist Sons live stream session featuring the Kishore family from New Delhi, India. So here they are. So we have with us father and son team, Captain Kishore Chinta, who is on my left, and his son Yogit Kishore. So let me give you a little introduction. Captain Kishore Chinta is an alumni of India's National Defense Academy and a former Indian Air Force fighter pilot. He has been a corporate and business aviation pilot for the last 16 years, and he now runs his own company. He's actively involved in social work and volunteer work, including running a yearly campaign to donate blankets and medicines to the homeless. Captain Kishore is married to a fellow Air Force officer who has been a pillar of support for 21 years and counting. They are blessed with a 20-year-old daughter and a 15-year-old son. And the son is here, Yogit Kishore. Yogit Kishore was born and raised in New Delhi. He is 15, almost 16 years old. He's currently in 10th class in BGS International School in Dwarka, New Delhi. Yogit is a red belt in Taekwondo, and he is a national level roller skater, and he has won multiple medals. He also loves video games and listening to music, and he's learning to play the guitar. And he aspires to become a pilot like his father, we are told. So hello both of you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hello, good evening.
Before we get into the intro and the Q&A, you, the audience, can also ask questions. So they'll be happy to answer most questions, I'm sure. Just make sure you're logged on to your YouTube account, and you can type the questions into the chat box on the right side of your screen. And today's chat box moderator and producer, Regina, will relay the questions to me, and I'll read them out for Captain Kishore and Yogit to answer. Okay, so here's a little intro to the topic. So we at the Pixel Project have always believed that fathers can and should be key allies to the movement to end violence against women. In 2012, we started our engagement with Dads Worldwide by organizing the annual 30 for 30 marathon blog interview series in June in honor of Father's Day, while enabling fathers worldwide to speak through written interviews about fatherhood and what dads can do to stop sexism, misogyny, and violence against women in their communities. Then in 2020, we revamped and expanded it to Fathers for Pixels, a multi-pronged program including this live stream series as we grow with online communities and technological advances. In recognition that fathers are the first male role models in most people's lives, and a major factor in whether today's boys will grow up to become non-sexist, non-misogynist men, we created the annual Fathers Raising Feminist Sons session. This session is designed to feature 2 or more generations of men from families that have demonstrated by example that progressive, conscientious, and non-sexist fathering is part of the foundation needed to raise men who break the cycle of toxic masculinity and male pattern violence. Each year, we focus on one family. So with all this in mind, let's get the discussion rolling with Captain Kishore and Yogit. And by the way, Yogit is the youngest panelist to date, which is great. Okay, so welcome to Fathers for Pixels, the both of you. Captain Kishore, what is the best thing about being a dad?
Well, the best thing about being a dad is, I was raised down south of India, and we have this old saying in South Indian families, that blood is thicker than water, and there is an eternal bond between a parent and child, I, for one, never thought, that it would bring such a joy. The small things of being kiddish with the children, and the unparalleled love when you come back home after a tough, hard day of work. Uh, just hanging out with them, uh, just talking to them, watching them blossom and grow up. Uh, it's just an unparalleled feeling. So for me, the best part about being a father is watching them grow and into strong individuals right in front of your eyes.
That's a great answer. Okay, Yogit, what is the best thing about your dad from your perspective as his son?
I think the best thing about my dad, the all-time best thing from my perspective is his cooking. Yeah, and yeah,
Okay,
and
that's a great answer.
second comes his cleanliness and his discipline.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well, that's very interesting to know. Actually, is not your usual answer, I would say. Yeah. Hmm. Interesting. So, do you think you are picking up on his cleanliness and discipline and maybe cooking skills?
Maybe the cleanliness part, but I'm nowhere near discipline, and I'm the worst at cooking.
Well, you have time. Okay, so let's get into the next question. Now, raising boys to respect women and girls is one of the cornerstones of building gender equality and stopping violence against women. However, this is a challenging prospect for parents because many societies, especially conservative societies, use tradition and culture to justify and enforce double standards according to the gender binary. So you have one set of rules for girls and another set for boys and men. So, Captain Kishore, how can fathers teach their sons about equality while still enabling them to appreciate the richness of their culture?
Well, the current day generation, are mostly self-taught. Uh, but having said that, teaching them anything has to start at home. So I, for one, luckily have a girl child at home. So equality definitely starts at home. There is equality. There is no errand. There is no chore which is gender specific at home. Whether it's folding clothes, running the washing machine, picking up the dishes. Uh, Especially in COVID, of course there were no house helps. All of us were doing running the households ourselves. So each of us rotated the jobs, and that was a great learning process. For teaching that no specific job, whether it's at home or outside, is gender specific. So that's where you need to start with. Uh, but having said that, yes, we watch a lot of stuff on TV. We go out. He gets to see, that equality is definitely nowhere uh, in the modern day world we live in. So you constantly have to remind them, small things do matter. Treat uh, the opposite sex as equals, and they'll treat you the same. And I asked him this question, do you ever feel the need uh, uh, to feel superior? He said, no, I feel equal to the girls in my class or my peer group. So it has to start at home.
That's interesting. So, can you tell us some of the difficulties you faced as a father when your attempts to teach Yogit gender equality and nonviolence clash with any cultural norms for how boys should behave in themselves and behave towards women and girls?
So, yes, I did face some difficulties, especially he was into roller skating, and
Yeah.
without generalizing, there were uh, a certain specific parents over there who would want the girl skaters to sit on one side, the boy skaters to sit on one side. Uh, they would look down upon the boys mingling with the girls. Uh, it's it was a little tough to accept that, because I always went to a co-ed school. Yogit is in a co-ed school, but that arena and that atmosphere was a little tough to get him to interact with his own teammates who were girls and be at ease and not be bogged down by anything anyone said. No, 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 don't interact with them. So that was one of the difficulties I faced. But difficulties are there every day, day-to-day challenges. Every day you step out. I'm sure he faces those challenges where certain jobs are considered not to be a boy's job. So I'm sure he would face those. But at home, we always try and teach him that there are no jobs which are gender specific.
Yep. Cool. Okay, we'll get back to that actually. But Yogit, how do you think teens like you can start a conversation with their parents about sexist double standards and treating daughters the same as sons?
Well, I don't think it should be that hard to start a conversation with your own parents. But as to bring up this topic in a conversation, I think there are a lot of movies and there's a news almost every day about this topic. So
Mhm.
while watching the news or while watching a movie or a series which brings up this topic, you can just at the same time you can talk about your parents about it. Like, I don't think it should be that hard.
Okay, cool. So your father said just now that sometimes you also face that thing where people were telling you you can't interact with girls in your team, and it makes things a bit difficult. Have you ever found, besides that, have you ever found other instances where the gender equitable values and behavior you learned at home are at odds with how your peers were raised, or how they behave in school, or how teachers treat people?
Never in my school. Not at my house, obviously. And it happened only once or twice in my life actually, and only in sports. Because first of all, there is you never see, even in the Olympics, you never see men and women race together. Like, it has become a norm now. So even in our roller skating, many coaches, they separated the boys and the girls in
Mhm.
different kind of teams, so that they can't talk to each other, or they don't practice with each other. Luckily, in my coach, he never did that. He just mixed all of them up. He sorted us according to our age group. So
Mhm.
10 to 15 would go here, 15 to 20 and all would go in this team. He never sorted us with a gender. And of course, if you aren't taught the right virtues at that age, that just seals that in your mind that you are either superior to girls or inferior or anything.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Because
you're right.
the boys and the girls are separated. And yeah.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah. So,
Hmm.
what do you think young men can do when confronted with sexism and misogyny among male peers? I know you don't face it usually, but what do you think people can do? A
Yeah.
lot of
So
young men your age face it. Yeah.
yeah. So at my age, like, I'm talking about 13 to 15 years, that age group. So at that age, all I think all you can do is just stay true to your roots. Don't don't involve yourself with them. Uh,
Mm.
just don't participate in that kind of behavior. So because at that age, the worst thing that could happen to you is isolation, right? So if you get isolated from everyone else, it leads to bullying, and that is just bullying is a major cause for suicide. Like, it could lead to a lot of worse things. Even okay, but when you grow up and you acquire some authority or some level of power, you can enforce your ideals
Mhm.
on other people, right? So I think you should wait till then. You shouldn't try it in school.
Okay. Oh yeah. Actually, you're right in some in a way where you have to think about your own safety as well, right?
Yeah,
Your
yeah,
own mental
yeah.
health as well. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and as a young person, as a young teen, as a child, you can't really do much. So I suppose what you need to do is find support from an adult, a teacher, a parent, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So patriarchal societies, including many Indian societies, are not just deadly for women and girls, but also damaging for men and boys because they enforce these toxic and destructive norms, such as teaching boys to use violence, to resolve problems, and to suppress other emotions such as sadness and anxiety. We know this has an adverse effect on boys and men, mentally and emotionally. Captain Kishore, what can fathers do to effectively prevent or counteract such cultural programming in their sons?
Well, like you said, yes, there is a patriarchal society, especially in the Indian society. Uh, we do come across news items like honor killings and uh, pe- women being isolated because they're born as women. They're not allowed to. Uh, we hear of colleges which don't allow women to wear jeans to the college just because that's their way of teaching girls. Uh, as late as the latest was, whether women should wear a burqa or hijab into college. So all these are cultural programming which is slowly now creeping into our daily lives more and more and more. So the best way to counter that is to stick to the basics, like Yogit said. Uh, we luckily, my wife is also a working woman. The patriarchal cultural programming that a woman should stay at home and look after the house is not the way which has been a part of upbringing for Yogit. So that's uh, one aspect which is majorly taken care of, luckily by virtue of both being working parents.
Mm.
But the rest of the parts of the cultural programming that, like I mentioned earlier also, that there is no gender specific job or gender specific work, whether it's cooking, whether it's cleaning, whether it's a career. There is no career which is gender specific. Uh, I, for one, think women are superior because a man cannot give birth, but there is nothing which a woman can't do uh, when it comes to a man's world. So women definitely are superior that ways. Uh, the best thing I would say to come across to counter the cultural programming of our patriarchal society which we live in is to teach the children that uh, nothing is gender specific.
Mm. And I suppose also teach both gender, all genders of children, that it's okay to express themselves and express their emotions in
Yes, definitely,
proper ways, instead of resorting to violence.
absolutely. I mean, yes, I've seen parents chide a child saying that, "Why are you crying? Are you a girl?" You know,
Hmm.
expressing emotion should never be looked down upon. I mean, I get, you know, picked upon by my wife because we go to watch a movie and I would probably get more moved by an emotional scene and
Hmm.
probably shed a few tears. So she's like, so it's okay to be emotional. I mean, there's nothing
Yeah,
great about it. So that's not something which you should be looking down upon.
yeah, you're right. So Yogit, as a young man growing up in this kind of society, have you ever seen any evidence of the toll that keeping emotions locked inside has had on your peers or anyone you know?
Uh, Fortunately, it hasn't happened to anyone I know or my friends or any of my peers. But
Okay.
you see it every day. You can just do a Google search on how many people commit suicide on a daily basis. A
Mm.
prevalent cause, I think, a prevalent cause for that is just locking up yourself from uh, your your peers or your family or your friends. So you have to express emotions. If you keep them locked in, it just leads to a lot of bad things.
Yeah, you're right. It's good to talk. Basically, you should talk about
Yeah,
your
yeah, yeah.
your thoughts and all that. Yeah, to anyone who you can trust. Really.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So in many Asian cultures, including Indian culture, it's just not done for parents, especially fathers, to express these softer emotions. I put this in quotation marks, softer emotions towards their sons or, to be honest, any children, such as saying things like "I love you." So, do you think this is a norm that should be broken, Captain Kishore?
Absolutely. I mean, expressing yourself should never be held back. Whether it's with a child, with anyone. I mean, uh, why should anyone hesitate to whether it's say I love you and or I envy you or I admire you, I
Hmm.
like you. It's any form of emotion should not be held back. I mean, I don't think there's softer emotions. I don't think there's anything untoward about displaying such emotions, whether you're a man or a woman.
What do you think, Yogit?
I agree, but I really just think that it's a really rare thing to happen in this day and age, because
Hmm.
of course I'm only saying this because I've seen that the urban lifestyle. I'm not talking about the rural areas and all, because I can't speak for them, right? So
Yep.
I don't think this. It depends on any sort of culture or stereotype. I think at this point it just depends on the sort of person the father is, because
Mm.
I don't think anyone is stopping you from loving your own child, right?
Yeah.
So
No, you're right. Yeah. But sometimes I guess it's these cultural expectations that men face where they feel they're unable to express themselves to even the people
yeah,
they love the most in the world, right? Which is kind of sad,
hmm.
really. Yeah. I mean, I'll confess to you guys, my father's the same. So, I know he loves us so much, but I very rarely would say I love you to his
Oh,
children, but I know he does. So it's just,
Oh,
and I think a lot of Asian fathers.
Yogit is the opposite. He kind of yeah, oh. So
Stop it. Stop
because
it, Appa. Why are you saying you love me so much? Yeah,
so
but parents do express their love in other ways, right? Just
oh
not in
yeah,
words,
yeah.
unfortunately. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So let's talk about toxic masculinity manifesting as violence, specifically male violence towards women and girls. We see it in many forms: domestic violence and rape, to men killing women who say no to them. This knee-jerk habit of resorting to violence is probably one of the most difficult forms of toxic masculinity to get rid of. Captain Kishore, how can fathers effectively teach boys to stand up to peer pressure from their male friends who behave abusively towards their female friends and classmates?
okay, uh, like I said, this is again something which doesn't need to be taught. You got to lead by example. Kids learn from what they see. And more often than not, they try to ape elders around. You know, so in a child's life, uh, for example, Yogit, out of 24 hours of his life, uh, he would spend half a day in the school and rest of the time at home mostly. So the major influence of men in his life would be me and probably a few people, few male teachers at school. So those are the ones who are going to shape his thought process, other than obviously social media, Google, uh, print media and TV and all that.
Yeah, movies.
But
Yeah.
all that can be negated by you yourself setting an example. Toxic masculinity is all over in every kind of movies and stuff. uh, Men are supposed to be strong, and they're not supposed to be they're supposed to be stoic. They're not supposed to be soft. They're supposed to be violent, dominant. They're supposed to be aggressive towards women. That's the kind of machism which you see in movies and other stuff. I don't think you really need to do all that uh, to be a strong human being or a strong man. So
Mhm.
if you do that yourself, that's what the child or the sons are going to learn. So that's, I would say, lead by example. There's not much to teach over there.
Yeah, that's it. That's a good point, actually. So, Yogit, you told us, and your father's told us that you have not really felt the presence of toxic masculinity or enforced sexism amongst your close friends and your teammates or your classmates. But have you ever witnessed it or experienced it in your wider community? And how has what you learned from your father helped you to handle this issue?
So I have experienced it. Not a lot from the wider community, but I'm embarrassed to say this, but I was actually the perpetrator.
Oh dear.
So
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
because what you said before wasn't entirely true. So this happened in my school once. So uh, we had one transfer student from Japan. Okay, she was Indian, but she had transferred from Japan. So she didn't know Hindi or and barely even knew English at that time. So uh, so everyone was making fun of her for liking uh, K-pop. I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
you would know that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So so I had a friend group of three friends. So both of them started teasing her for it, like saying that anyone who is a K-pop idol is not a man. They're gay. So at that time I was very small, like 11, 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So because of the peer pressure and all, I started. I also started doing it. Like I also started saying that yeah, they're gay. Yeah, they're not men. And it went on for a couple of months. Then I just stopped. I felt that no, this needs to stop. This needs to stop now. So fortunately, I stopped on time because that girl left the next month, and if by any chance I had not stopped, I would have definitely regretted it for all my life. Like it would have stayed in the back of my head. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's what happened.
That's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that story. But can you
Yeah,
tell us what made you stop? Like, what was your thought process there?
actually, uh, her friends actually confronted us. So they talked to us about yeah, she used to cry in the bathroom because you made fun of her
Okay.
so much. She didn't even know our language. Uh,
Mm,
so that just left an impression on me. I thought about it overnight, and I just said, yeah, because I stopped teasing her. So
mm,
ultimately, my friends stopped as well, and fortunately, it led to a chain reaction, and everyone in our class stopped teasing her.
mm.
And just before she left, we just bought a pen or some little things for her, some sweets and all. Yeah,
Okay. That's a very interesting story, actually, and it's a very good example of how, even as a very young person, you can still influence your peers and
yeah,
stop
yeah.
bullying from happening and stop toxic masculinity from happening. That's very great. That's a great story. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. Okay. So, uh, my next question was going to be how can a young person like you model positive behavior for their male peers, but you just gave us a great example. So, yeah, even as an 11-year-old, you managed to do that. You managed to think about that and do it, right? So,
Yeah.
um, I assume you still do this kind of things, don't you? Model good behavior to
Uh,
your peers.
I try my best, but I rarely
Okay.
get a chance.
Okay. What do you mean you rarely get a chance?
No, because as we grow up, we get wiser, so these things
Yeah.
just stop.
Okay. Yeah. Among your peers.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
Yeah.
The children get more understanding, and they actually start finding out why the person is like that, and just don't
Mm.
directly start making fun of them.
Mm.
So yeah,
Yeah, it's about understanding the other person, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, all right. speaking of relationships between young people and bullying, so 21st century teens like Yogit, you're born into a digital world. And with COVID-19 pandemic still ongoing, you've been spending more and more time online than ever, and whether it's for school or socializing. As with in-person interactions, many boys online may not be able to recognize if their overtures towards girls are welcome or to clearly communicate consent and respect. So, moreover, many studies have shown that people are more inclined to behave badly online because of the detached nature of online interactions. So, my first question is for Captain Kishore actually. How can a father help their sons to develop and adhere to positive and respectful online etiquette that enables trust and respect and consensual online interactions with women and girls?
Well, to start with, there is a tendency to be overtly bold when it comes to an online interaction because it's not face to face. Nobody can just reach out and probably slap you. That gives a hint of uh, you know uh, freedom people take for granted. That's the first part. So that set aside. Uh, Consent could be for anything. Someone might have said, "Okay, let's watch this movie together online." You know, but that consent was just to watch that, not to uh, pass any comments. So consent is a step by step process. It could be for one thing. You may not. You should not assume it is for everything and anything. Just because someone's friendly with you, uh, you know, it doesn't mean that you start asking them personal questions. You start asking them for uh, probably pictures, or you start bullying them if they don't agree to what you say. Uh, it could be anything. So uh, I would try and explain to Yogit that anything you do online uh, is a prelude to what you would do in face. So don't do anything online which you would not want to do face to face. That's my way of teaching.
Yeah, that's very good advice actually, and I like what you said about consent is a step-by-step process. You're absolutely right. You need to get consent as you go along for everything you do. How do you think fathers can model healthy and respectful behaviors online to their sons?
I'm sorry, you got cut off over there.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. So my question was, how do you think fathers can model healthy and respectful behavior online to their sons?
Well, like I said, I can just set an example for Yogit. If I am respectful in an online conversation with Yogit, so that would probably be an example for him that that's the way he should interact with others online.
That's your question. So before I ask Yogit a question, I just want to put this comment online. So Shaswati Chatterjee, who is from our partner, says that she agrees with what you said about online getting consent. It's actually very good advice, especially in the fraught online space. Okay. So Yogit, what do you think teenage boys can do to educate themselves and their peers about consent and online respect to women and to girls online, to your peers online?
Yeah. So I think now a lot of schools are holding seminars and programs for the interactive programs actually for the children to learn about this. And even if they don't do it in school, I think the parents do a pretty good job at teaching this. Uh, and even if that doesn't happen, you always have Google. You always have so many movies send this message. So many songs. So many even ads send this message to the younger audience. So at this point, it's actually hard not to learn about it, actually learn about it, if you actually think right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So if you're not learning about it, then you're deliberately ignoring it. Then, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you ever find yourself teaching your father about what is acceptable or considered polite or impolite in online interactions?
No, that never happens because my father has been doing online interaction since before I was even born. He had a phone
Okay.
before I was even born. Yeah,
Okay.
and yeah, the box phones, if you remember how they were.
Oh,
So
I remember.
yeah, so yeah, actually the opposite happens. Like sometimes a father says that don't say that on a call or while messaging someone else, your friends or family.
Okay, that's interesting. Hmm. Yeah, that's very interesting. I guess because of your age and your father's age. So just
Yeah.
just yeah, just an aside. For me, I find myself teaching my father, but my parents are quite old, so they are not digital natives. So I do find myself teaching them how to interact online. But this is
Yeah.
very interesting. Yeah. Okay. So in pop culture, there is a very clear and widespread double standard in the sexualization of girls and women compared to boys and men. Women and girls are encouraged to present their value in terms of their sexual appeal, while simultaneously being shamed for expressing their sexuality. For example, Indian films and TV shows in any Indian language, which we all have experienced, uh, they still overwhelmingly portray sexist and misogynistic stories and stereotypes. And Captain Kishore, you said just now how men are portrayed, they have to be macho and they have to fight the bad guys and they have to be aggressive to women, and this is considered, the best kind of men. Um, so this double standard plays a key role in driving sexual harassment and violence online and in real life, amplified by online video sharing and social media. So, Captain Kishore, how can fathers and male role models talk to their sons and nephews and boys that they mentor about this double standard with the aim of teaching them to recognize and intervene to stop slut shaming and victim blaming and sexual harassment of their female peers, online and offline?
Well, to start with, a part of it I've already mentioned. There is nothing which is gender specific. Okay, why I keep going back to that is that is the basis for most of the things. So, slut shaming is a term so broadly used in the modern day. It could be as simple as someone calling, "Hey, look at a butt. It's huge," or body shaming people. They're fat. They're too slim. They're weak. Uh, you know, uh, Someone's got freckles. Anything and everything. Typical teenage stuff, which I'm sure Yogit would be facing. I keep having conversations. Uh, he has never felt the need to ever say such thing to anyone at school or in his peer group. On the contrary, he's had people tell him, stuff. So I think he's been lucky that way, that he's not been bullied or body shamed. Uh, but the best way to teach him would be not do it yourself, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's at home or outside. Uh, I keep telling him, small stuff like you should open the door for your mother and sister, when you go to the car. Open the door, stuff like that. So if they recognize that woman is not the weaker sex uh, uh, in any way whatsoever, they will take that forward as they grow further. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's sons, nephews, boys, whosoever, if I have to mentor them in any way, I would tell them the same, that uh, body shaming or slut shaming is also sexual harassment. You don't really have to uh, touch a woman to sexually harass her. If you
Yep.
keep calling her fat on an everyday basis, or comment upon her appearance or dressing sense on him, that itself is tantamount to harassment, as far as I'm concerned. So it doesn't have to be anything to do physically, but any form of shaming someone is harassment. So as long as Yogit recognizes that and refrains from doing that, I'm sure he'll grow to be a strong young man.
Okay. So I have a follow-up question. So what about this thing that a lot of parents do? I'm speaking from Indian culture because we're all of Indian descent, where parents and mostly fathers do, where they tell their daughters, why are you wearing that? What are you wearing? And are you going out like that? And why are you going out? And, but whereas their brothers or the sons would be allowed to do wear whatever they want and go out whenever they want with whoever they want. So what is your reaction to that? And I'm sure you don't do it, but what do you think about that?
That's interesting that you mentioned it, that Yogit's got a rap on his knuckles a couple of times for commenting on his sister's clothing when I have not commented. So that's interesting. We had this conversation between me and Yogit, and I said, you have no business commenting when me, the man in the house, don't comment about my wife or my daughter. You have no business to comment. So, yes, it was an off. It's not that he does it regularly, but it happened once long back. But he was just concerned that the boys outside might, bully my daughter. That was his concern. But it came out as that he was trying to, control what she wears. But you know where I'm getting at. He got rapped on the knuckle for being concerned, which didn't come out as concern to me because I only knew what he said, but not what he meant. What he meant was in good spirit, that he was being protective about his sister. But what it appeared to me as an outsider who wasn't aware of what was going on in his mind was that he was trying to comment.
That's the thing. Actually, it actually is control, right? People who do these things are trying to control their wives and their daughters and the women in society, disguising it as concern over their safety, right? So I feel personally, because it's personal for me, I feel like as a loving and protective and a supportive father or brother or husband or whatever, you should trust your female friend, daughter, wife to be able to handle themselves in a situation. And it's not her fault, it's not the woman's fault, it's society, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Yogit, I'm learning so many interesting things about you today. And with such culture and such pop culture everywhere, how do you navigate your way through it? How do you reconcile all these films that show you all these things? How do you reconcile this entertainment value, the messages that it is sending to young people in your community?
So with all that pop culture, it is almost impossible to navigate your way through it. Like, even if you filter your Instagram For You page or your YouTube recommendations, you can't really escape from that one odd video that comes on your recommended, that's on that topic, right? So, or some other explicit topic. So basically what you can do is, even if you're tempted to click on it, even if you do click on it, if you watch all of it and you hear every single point they make, you just have to end it at that. Like, if you hear a song, you like it, and you find that its message is conflicting with or contradicting what you have learned from your parents or what your ideologies are, you have to end it at just the enjoyment part of the music. Like, you don't listen to music for their sentimental value or their psychological, whatever the values they have, other values, deep meanings. You just have to stop them at the enjoyment part. Like, you can't let the things, the bad things you see at this age, like 16 and above. I'm not talking about the children, because
Yeah.
yeah. So you have to you know, just know yourself, keep yourself safe from all that. You have I'm forgetting the term, actual term, but
Do you mean
yeah.
self-awareness? Like have
Yeah,
your
it's
own sense of
self-awareness.
self and
I
yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't remember the actual term I wanted to use, but I hope you get the point.
Yes, we do. I think I know what you mean. You listen to a very a cool song for the entertainment, the nice music, the
Yeah,
fun
yeah.
video or whatever, but
Yeah.
you don't take it as advice of how to behave, because you should know yourself, and know what you were taught,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
know your own values, right?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't let it define you. You can't make it your personality trait that yeah, if he disrespects women, yeah, I'll have to do it because he's so famous. So many people watch him. He must be right, right?
Yeah.
So
But
you
yeah.
especially with children, they'll start following everyone, anyone. Like if they have a decent following of people that are saying, yeah, I agree with him, they'll follow a man making clay who says, yeah, women are bad.
Yeah.
Actually, this
Yeah.
happened with my little cousin sister. She's actually 6, and she started using all these terms that I think you know Instagram Reels, right?
Mm-hmm.
When TikTok was banned in India, and
Mm-hmm.
Instagram came up with the Reels thing. So my little cousin sister, she started using all these very explicit terms, like um, I don't want to say them, but they were very bad. So it just shows how much the pop culture or the media, social media, has on the younger children rather than the uh, teens or middle aged people.
Yeah, yeah, and you're right. When you're 15, 16 and above, you have the capacity to actually think
Yeah,
for
yeah,
yourself and make a decision about how you want to behave, right? Yeah.
yeah.
So you
Yeah.
shouldn't, yeah, just follow blindly. Yeah, that's good advice. Right. So now, understanding the importance of consent, especially sexual consent, is one of the most important conversations a father can have with his son. So, Captain Kishore, how does one go about talking to their son about consent?
Well, that's always a tricky subject, but uh, how does one go about is to have an open channel of communication with your child. It's a son or daughter, it doesn't really matter. Uh, they should never feel constrained to not be able to walk up to you and speak about anything. That's the starting point. As long as the channel of communication is open, you can keep talking about. And the sad part of the current day environment is we read about molestations and rapes on practically a daily basis. You know, Yogit uh, keeps asking, why would anyone want to do something to someone when they don't want it? What kind of pleasure would you get out of it? It's a very innocent but very
Yes. Yeah.
important question he brings out.
Yeah.
Is that if someone doesn't want to hold your hand, what pleasure do you get in trying to forcefully hold someone's hand? You know,
Yeah.
uh, it's someone doesn't want to have a hot dog, and you open their mouth and shove it into their mouth and say, "Oh, okay, you better enjoy this." It's
Yeah.
something like that. So, consent. Eh, say, I mean, the way to go about talking about sexual consent is consent for anything. Like I mentioned earlier, also, it's a
Mm.
stepwise consent. Just because someone gives you a wholehearted hug doesn't mean that they're sexually inclined to it. It is for you to understand the thin line between someone giving you a hug as a friend and someone giving you a hug as something more than a friend. Just because someone's hugged you doesn't mean that is an open invitation to go further. Consent is a stepwise process. Every step needs to have consent. So, as long as you keep talking to your children, that part can always be explained.
Yeah, and you're right about talking about consent to your children, and talking to your friend or partner about it's in, like, for example, the hug that if you're not sure, ask them. So talk about it, right? Because it's a step-by-step process. So what would you suggest to fathers who want to talk to their sons about consent but have no idea where or when or how to begin?
Well, to start with, if you want to talk about sexual consent, then you need to first educate your child about sex education.
Yep.
Yeah. So without talking about sex education, you cannot talk about sexual consent. Both go hand in hand. So first you need to broach that topic about the birds and bees, whether the school does it, you do it. I would rather have me doing it with Yogit rather than someone outside, whether it's school or, of course, the school might do it, but I want them to have that confidence to come back to me and ask me, hey, this is what the schools was told to me in school. Is it true? Does it happen like this? He should have that confidence in me that I and that open channel of communication with me. So
Yeah,
as
right.
long as you start with sexual education, then you can start talking about sexual consent.
Yeah, and the danger, if you don't do it or and the school doesn't do it, then the teenager is gonna go somewhere and find out this information. You might go online and get the wrong kind of information, get the wrong kind of tips and advice and not learn about consent. So that's even worse. So Yogit, how do you think teens who have questions or need guidance can broach the subject of consent with their fathers? Or if they are unable to, do you have any advice of where or to whom they can go to learn about this?
So I'm not sure how teens can be the ones to broach the subject. Of course, it's not. It's not. You don't see it. You don't always see teens broaching the subject. It's always the parents who who like who take the lead. But if if the teen wants to ask their father or mother about this, I think they should say they shouldn't beat around the bush. They should straight up come to the point and ask the question. Like there's no point in you know saying that saying it in a roundabout way. You have to know it at some point, right? But then it matters if it's a 5-year-old or 6-year-old child that's asking it. Like you don't have to ruin their innocence at that age. Uh, so I guess the parents also have to uh, keep it in mind. And then if the parents don't do it, I think the next best thing is your teachers. And or if the teachers don't do it, then you have to ask someone who is elder, I think, and someone who is neutral. Like he doesn't have any sexist ideologies or someone who thinks that men or women are inferior or superior. Uh, that's it, I guess. Because if he's not neutral, or if he's young, if he's the same age, uh, I don't think you'll just not believe him. If he's the same age, you'll start thinking about what if we could change this thing this rule about consent a little bit, and you just go out with it. So
Yeah.
you need someone elders. You need someone who is at least a decade, who's been born a decade before you, someone
Okay.
who's more experienced in life, right? Uh, and most importantly, neutral to both genders.
Yeah. That's pretty good. Might be a bit difficult, I think, for some people to find that kind of person. But I think there are
Yeah,
quite a few
because
resources.
the person, most people don't need to find them, right? Most people will have their parents or their teachers explain this to them. They
Yeah,
don't need to find them.
yeah, yeah. Okay, that's true. But if you need more information, there are lots of resources online, safe places, and you can go to Breakthrough India. I'm sure they have a lot of resources as well. So do a search.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Even that could
Okay.
be a bit tricky, but it is an
Yeah.
option.
Yeah. Google is the internet is a vast and dangerous place. But
Yeah,
like you were saying just now, as a 15-year-old and above, you need to use your discretion, right? And
yeah,
use your
yeah.
brain and think about things. Yeah.
Hmm.
So now on the flip side, many people in the older generation do not understand consent as we do now. So is it possible for sons, teens or even older, to talk to their fathers to teach them about what consent means? Do you think this could happen?
Yes, it could happen. It should happen,
Okay.
and I don't know how they should go about it, but they should try their best. They
Mm.
should try. Uh, they should give it their all, and even if that doesn't change their views, then I think they'll have to take some extreme measures.
Okay. What are these extreme measures you're thinking of?
Yeah, I can't think of any, but some way or the other, they have to make them realize, like it is
Yeah.
it is very important.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right. I think for younger people like you, like teenagers, even broaching the subject and calling out an adult in your life for about consent would actually make people think about it anyway. So that's a good first step, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're
Okay.
absolutely right.
So almost at the end, we have the last few questions, and these last few questions are about sharing tips and ideas for fathers or teen boys who want to be male allies. So, Captain Kishore, first, do you have any particular tips and suggestions for fathers or fathers to be who want to raise feminist sons?
I think as long as you make an effort to raise a gender neutral child, uh, feminism will be part of it. You know, you don't have to make an overtly uh, concerted effort to make a son feminist. You know, this the start would be to raise them gender neutral. That nothing is gender specific. Women are absolutely the same as men, and that is where so equality, uh, uh, non-misogynist behavior, feminism, everything will fall in place if you start with that. That's my advice. You know, don't raise children to tell them that this is a girl's job, this is a boy's job. No, you should not behave this way. This is the way girls behave. You know, uh, uh, I know for sure uh, there are certain parents uh, I know of, okay,
Mhm.
who would say, Yogit, you're wearing a pink T-shirt, and woman, women wear that. It's not a man's color.
Color.
Trust me, I know of people who would say that. Okay,
Okay.
I know of people who would say that.
It's a
So
color.
it's a color, but there will be people
Yes.
who would
Yeah.
say it's it's uh, it's something as small as that. You know,
Mm.
viewpoints can be as narrow-minded as that. So you
Yeah.
need to open your horizons. Start at that there is no specific thing that you should behave like this. You should behave like that. That would be a
Yeah.
good start in raising,
So,
feminists.
what about fathers who are already in the middle of raising their sons and then realize that they've taught their sons sexist behavior and now would like to undo that? Do you have any suggestions or ideas about that?
That's really a tough task. You know, I would say, uh, lead by example and also seek therapy. You
Mm.
know, uh, it's broadly looked down upon.
Yep.
When I say therapy, it could be a counselor, it could
Yep.
be a child counselor. I would personally think that once it's reached a stage where the child is already uh,
Expressing.
experimenting in sexist behavior, it's already too late. As a parent, you can lead by example by not doing the same thing, but to undo it from there, I think not every parent would be equipped knowledge wise. So it's best to have an expert help and start to make amends. uh,
Hmm.
Unfortunately, at least in the patriarchal Indian society, uh, seeking any form of therapy is looked down upon. That's
Yeah,
something we need
most of
to
Asia, yeah.
open out to.
Yeah.
That if a child is already displaying sexist behavior, you talk to them. Uh, if you go really harsh on them, they might go to the other extreme. So you have to
Right.
treat them with kids' gloves, and also probably seek counseling and therapy.
Okay, that's good advice. Right. So, Yogit, do you have any tips and suggestions for teenage boys about how they can talk to their fathers or parents about feminism and being a feminist ally?
So again, I don't think it should be that hard to talk to your own parents. But as to as for tips and suggestions, I would say just stand your ground. Like do not participate in that kind of sexist or misogynistic behavior. Just just draw a fine line even with your friends that this is a line you just cannot I just cannot cross, uh,
Hmm.
and just hope for the best.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have any suggestions or ideas for teen boys about how they can support the women in their life? So their sisters and cousins, their mothers and their friends who are facing gender discrimination or bias or even sexual harassment, any kind of
Yes,
harassment.
yes, they you should definitely help them, but I would say do not directly involve yourself with the perpetrators, and you should focus uh, on the one on your mother or your sister, whoever is being whoever is the victim. So you
Mm.
have to encourage them to talk to the right authorities about whatever they are facing, and you have to teach them to say no. You have to teach them to be confident in their own self, like to love themselves. Right?
Mm.
I
Yeah.
guess that's just the least you could do.
Yeah, that's good advice as well. And again, you have to make sure that you are also safe, so you don't engage directly with any like the harasser or anything. But I mean,
Yeah.
if they're facing this kind of gender bias at home, you're right. You should support them and teach them to stand up for themselves. Yeah. All right. So that was actually my last question. That was a really interesting discussion. Thank you to the both of you for your insights and your ideas and telling me all your stories. Um, yeah, so actually, I'm going to share a few links in the chat box, or maybe uh, okay, our producer is going to share a few links. So you can find out more about violence against women and what you can do about it. Visit the Pixel Project's website, www.thepixelproject.net. We have a lot of resources there for adults and teenagers. Lots of tips about how you can, for things to do online, things to do in school, things to do in the workplace. Lots of things to do. Uh, find out more about the Fathers for Pixel program. You can visit bit.ly/stats for pixels. Let me see if I can share this. Okay, the links are being shared in the chat box, so click on the links. We have one or two more panels coming up, so check that out. Learn more about Breakthrough India, our partner who was amazing in setting up this panel. Go to inbreakthrough.org, inbreakthrough.org. And they have lots of resources and they do a lot of programs as well in India. So they're amazing. We've been partners with them since the very beginning for about 14 years. So go and check them out. Okay, so that's it from us. We'll say good evening, good morning, good night, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much, Yogit and Captain Kishore. Goodbye,
Thank you,
everybody.
Anusia. Bye.
Bye.